Welcome to Configure It Done, the podcast where SAP leaders share real insights, proven strategies, and stories from frontlines of major SAP transformations. Get inspired, get informed, let's get it done.
All right, welcome back to the Configure It Done podcast. Bethany, you've brought an absolutely fantastic guest along. Can you tell us a bit more?
Absolutely. So this is Rebecca Bottomley. So she is the APAC head of SAP Learning. So she looks after adoption services, training, and she's going to speak to us today about WalkMe.
Perfect. Rebecca, for those that are listening that don't know about yourself, can you just give a bit more detail about your background, where you're currently working, and then, just a little bit about today's topic on WalkMe?
Yeah, so I've been working in the SAP training space for probably 20 years, the last 12 with SAP. Really, love helping end users get really confident, learn the system, and, take a really modern approach to that digital learning and that change journey. Back in the early days of implementing ECC, you'd kind of bring everyone into the classroom, train them, and people would literally burst into tears because they felt really confident in their current job and, could process 50 checks an hour, and then were trying to learn a new system and it would take so long. But then you would give them the confidence and get their speed up and before go live and give them the confidence. But we don't want to have those tears anymore. So there's a lot more. It's exciting to talk about WalkMe because there is a better way to help people feel more confident, more comfortable in the systems. The systems have improved, obviously, but also the training approach. So, definitely a long background and a long journey from then to today.
You've seen it all. Jay, you were going to ask her actually to give an overview of WalkMe. So you've given this to me. I tried to explain it to Jay and I failed miserably. So Jay, I'll let you ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would love, Rebecca, just a bit of an idiot's guide to what WalkMe is. I was doing a bit of reading before. I know SAP's acquired them, but if you was explaining WalkMe to someone that didn't know anything about it, how would you go about explaining it?
Yeah, I would explain it as an in-application guidance tool to really help users navigate the new system and get up and running fast. So the WalkMe app is really designed to get the users up and running fast. And if I give an example of, there's some processes, you can have the best system in the world and absolutely the user experience and the user interfaces with modern solutions are great. But sometimes you just don't know where to start. And I've had that experience as a manager. The first time I went to put in a headcount request, I was sitting at home and had ticked over after 5 o'clock. And I was thinking, I just don't even know where to start in the system. I don't know what screen to go into. I don't know where to go. I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow and phone a friend. But then I thought, no, let me just click the in-app guidance and just see if there's any information that might help me. There was a tip-in-a-minute video on how to create a headcount request. And I looked at it and went, oh, that's easy. I can do that. And I went and did it in 5 minutes. And that's the confidence we want to give to people with WalkMe, is that in-app guidance, that confidence that for those infrequently used processes or complex processes, they don't have to have that fear or think I've got to phone a friend. The information you need is at your fingertips within the application to tell you how to go about it.
I think we need some of those systems in our business, Bethany. The amount of times we're like, I need to phone a friend.
I think so too, actually. We recruit technology, but we're not technology experts. We find those that are, but none of us are actually very tech savvy. We try, but so if you were to look at why SAP chose to acquire WalkMe, and they would have been looking at an overall gap in the SAP ecosystem and what WalkMe was actually filling, what is that gap and why did SAP acquire WalkMe?
Yeah, and I guess we did have a comparable solution, SAP Companion, but WalkMe was built from the ground up specifically as a digital adoption platform. So that was its sole purpose. And it does it really, really well. So it does the system walkthroughs, the task guidance, the in-app help, and it's got the analytics to also show where people are struggling. So if companies are looking to see, where are people struggling and going, oh, 80% of my managers are dropping out of a headcount request halfway through because it's too complicated or because they're missing this step. So it's got that built-in analytics as well as being able to support the users. And it does it really, really well. So we have retired Companion and moving to the WalkMe platform. And that's definitely the advantage, I think, is that it's, built specifically for this purpose.
Okay.
How brilliant is that? There's so many times when I go to do something very small with extensions or just something little, and if I don't know what it is, I will sit on it for hours and do other things, and it's still waiting. And if you just had something in app that can just quickly show you what it is, we'd be so much more efficient.
And Rebecca, pivoting the conversation just to like training and onboarding. How do you see WalkMe changing the way people are trained and onboarded in the future?
Yeah, and I guess in the traditional approach, we had manuals, classroom guides, quick reference guides, things like that, where you had to still go find them. And often, if you go into a project 2 years later and go, where are your quick reference guides? People are like, oh, actually, I think we blew away that SharePoint or that folder where things were stored. And it's difficult to find. And in the new WalkMe world, it transforms this by embedding the support documents, the help within the application and that context guidance. So we do have a really great WalkMe challenge where we actually sit people side by side and give one a manual, like a flipbook manual, and give one WalkMe and get them to do the same tasks in the system, like, procuring a new laptop or whatnot. And the person with the in-app guidance is done like that. And it gives people that real confidence to just jump in and do the task without, having to phone a friend or having to find a manual, because it just gives them the guidance. So it definitely enhances the user experience. And it doesn't mean we don't need traditional training for some of the more complex tasks, but you can embed the training right within the system so that people know what training they should do.
I'm glad you touched on that, Rebecca. Obviously, we deal with a lot of contractors and permanent people in the change and training space, and the hard question is going to be, is this going to replace their role? But I think you've touched on it there, that it might just change their role. Did you have any like certain aspects do you think that the trainer role will change?
Yeah, the trainer role's definitely changing, particularly as we come more into the AI world, and SAP is launching WalkMe Digital Learning in the future that has embedded AI to actually help, um, you know, create the content faster. So it definitely will help make trainers more efficient, where you can drag in all of the source content, the test scripts, the process flows, the functional diagrams, or functional specs, do a prompt and generate different types of learning content. But it still needs the trainer to review it, to make sure it's logical, to make sure the AI is not hallucinating, and to also know what content to bring in, and also to order things in the right sequence as well. So there's always some smarts that the trainer needs to bring along to help with, bringing things together. And also that knowing what needs to be trained and what maybe is just support materials. So there's still that judgment call that those experienced trainers know, where I've had the experience where I had, the process owner from the customer refused to train people on how to approve purchase requisitions because the process was so simple. Get an email, you either approve or reject. But if people don't know why they're doing it and then don't do it and they bank up, it means their vendors don't get paid and they're on stop credit, and it actually has a business disruption and an impact. So I think trainers have that experience to know, this is business critical. We've got to take care of it. We've got to make sure people don't just know what to do in the system. They actually need to know why they're doing it and be motivated to do it and to make the change, that you no longer just call up the vendor and order parts. You actually need to send them a physical purchase requisition. So I think that human element and that human-centered design of the training and the support and the application help, that's always going to be there. That's the art.
That's really reassuring to hear. 'Cause like I said, there's a lot of people out there that fear AI is going to replace their jobs. So like you said, I think it's just going to change it. So yeah, really, really reassuring.
I think it means that we have to. My husband struggled with very similar issues. He's in the video game industry, and just with AI altogether, it's replacing different aspects of every role. But it's like you won't get replaced if you stay on top of it. You train yourself, you get certified where you need to, and then you up level your emotional intelligence even further, so that you're able to make smarter decisions with the AI. That's how you avoid, I think, getting replaced, and that matches with what you're saying. So
Yeah.
if we look at some of the challenges that SAP customers are facing right now with user training, so you'd be seeing it all day, every day, how does WalkMe address these? You've given a couple of examples, but I'd love to know more.
Yeah, and I guess the customers are still often facing challenges of complex interfaces, or having people, worked with one customer and they had a call center that was actually to service one customer on one call, logged into 14 systems. And so there's still a lot of complexity in customers' landscapes. The high cost of training, and also with cloud, the rapid features come out. So it used to be you did an implementation and the software didn't change for the next 5 years, and so you didn't need to retrain people. But businesses are evolving so fast now, and processes are changing, and even government regulations on e-invoicing and things like that is changing. So businesses are having to adopt new features more frequently, and customers are trying to reduce their support tickets. So WalkMe really addresses these challenges by offering that real-time, in-context guidance, and also automating some of the routines so that you don't have to log into 7 different systems. You can just fill out a form and it can actually do it for you. So, and providing the analytics to track the user behaviors and work out where you can optimize those workflows. It really leads to fewer errors, reduced reliance on help desk, and, just can make things a lot easier, especially when people have got some of those legacy applications still there working with some of the modern applications, and it's a bit jarring for people to be swapping backwards and forwards.
So our listeners, they love use cases, like real life examples. And I was hesitating before the podcast whether to ask this question, because I know WalkMe is a very kind of recent acquisition. But have SAP or WalkMe got any recent use cases that you can bring to this podcast? And if so, what's the impact and results?
Yeah, and it's definitely WalkMe's got a really strong customer base, which is amazing. And we're seeing a really strong uptake from our SAP customers. So yeah, we've definitely got use cases and examples, like a global medical device manufacturer. They saw a 90% first pass approval rate with their requisitions, where previously people had multiple cycles of getting requisitions approved because they'd put the wrong information in, forgotten to put things in. But with WalkMe reminding them and having smart tips on what to put in, and getting people to make the right decisions, 90% of the purchase recs got approved first time. And we've got another example of another enterprise that managed to double its task completion rates, and another food and beverage company that saved 14,000 hours for financial analysts. So there's some really good savings of time, and being able to remove some of that frustration. Like, definitely, getting your expenses rejected and having to provide more information, or getting purchase recs rejected and having to refill out the information. These are little frictions that people, and frustrations people could do without.
Finding more and more when it comes to AI, it's solving the most obvious pain points that we didn't even realize was a pain point until you get in there and you get data and you get the analytics and you realize it was so simple, and it seems so ridiculous that it was an issue for so long. Like the hours saved already as some of our clients that have taken up any kind of SAP driven AI has been amazing.
Yeah.
So if we look at, because I know I'm going to get asked this question a lot, and we already touched on this a bit, but I'd love you to touch on it more, because again, I feel like it's going to be a big question coming up soon. So how will WalkMe impact the role of SAP trainers and consultants specifically? So we spoke about how we'll need the human-centered element, but is there anything else you can tell us about whether it
Yeah,
will replace any other aspects of training and what trainers can actually expect?
yeah, and I think it definitely won't replace trainers, but WalkMe will certainly enhance their roles. So with the WalkMe digital adoption platform and the WalkMe digital learning coming, those two components will really enhance the role where the SAP trainers and consultants can really focus on the strategic elements rather than the repetitive type of instruction. So while it might help create the quick reference guides faster and create AI generated video tutorials and things like that, you know, the trainers can really focus on how do we help reduce the friction, the learning needs analysis, what needs to be trained, when does it need to be trained, what is the best approach to be trained, is it a complex process that needs, system tutorials or tip in a minute videos, or is it a simple process and we just really need to explain to people the what and the why, and focus on, a good example is performance reviews. You know, filling out the performance review doesn't need training because it's really simple to fill out a performance review in SuccessFactors. But preparing for your performance review interview requires quite a bit of training to make people aware of how they should prepare, what they should prepare, what to expect from the conversation with their manager. So there's still all of that training on the what and the why and the how that needs to be done. The system task is obvious and easy to do, but it's how do you do it? And even with companies introducing SAP AI like Joule, yes, AI is intuitive and writing prompts is a bit of an art, but it's not that difficult. But training people on the AI ethics and the do's and the don'ts and data privacy and what are you allowed to use it for and what are you not allowed to use it for, these are the things that the trainers are still going to have to be there to make sure that that wraparound training is there. And those repetitive creation of system tasks or quick reference guides might be taken over by AI, but it's still those wraparound training courses and information that people need to be confident to make the right decisions about the information they put into the system. And one of the things I like to say is that, training people which buttons to push and which fields to fill out is only 50% of the training. The other 50% is what do you need to bring to the table and what decisions do you need to make to get the right information in the system at the right time? And that's always going to be there, that the trainers need to really help train people on what are the 5 different sales order types? When do you use each of these different 5 sales order types? How do you use them? And what's the approval process or what's the next steps? And, why are we changing? So it's all that that the trainers will still need to bring to the table, and there'll always be a role for that. But WalkMe is just enabling that just-in-time learning, reducing the training fatigue, and providing that in-application guidance to make it easier for people to consume that training, at the right time and not trying to overtrain people pre-go live. It's giving them the
Yes, yes,
confidence
yes.
that I don't need to learn how to do the end of financial year processes now 12 months out. I know where the training's going to be. I know what to expect. And when I need to do it, I'll be able to do it with confidence.
That makes sense. So essentially what trainers still need to continue skilling themselves on besides starting to get more in-depth understanding of AI is critical thinking, understanding business, understanding human motivation and human behavior. And it's those elements that are still going to be really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. Love it.
So Rebecca, if I was a bit of a sales plug now, but if I was a customer and I'm listening and I'm interested and I want to embed WalkMe into the organization, how do I go about getting access to that?
Yeah, I definitely would get onto the WalkMe website and have a look at some of the videos there. And certainly they can reach out. People can find me on LinkedIn. If they want to send me a message, they can reach out and I can put them in touch with somebody who can give them a demo. But there's some really amazing videos, especially on that WalkMe challenge, showing the with WalkMe and without WalkMe and what the time difference is and the savings.
Oh, that's so good, by the way, because I mentioned WalkMe to a couple of my SAP customers, and both of them immediately said, "Oh, but I like old school training. There's no point." And as you were speaking, I was thinking if that was across social media, that video, how quickly that would change people's minds, because you can't argue with data. If you've got a side by side of how quickly you're able to adapt to something or get trained on something, it becomes a no brainer pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I must admit, I'm still a bit old fashioned and like to print a quick reference guide and have it on my desk. But with WalkMe, you can still have the link to the quick reference guide for those people who are old school. And I think that's one of the things that I love about it is it doesn't matter whether you're like, yep, let me jump in. I'm happy to jump in without the parachute. There's a guided tour and you can do it. Just learn as you go. And for those people who are still a bit old school who want to print a quick reference guide, there's a link, print it. So it
I
really
love those.
does help those different, we've got that multi-generational workforce and we all kind of a bit stuck in our own ways of learning. Some people want to see it before they do it. So the, online tutorials that walk you through it first, so everyone's a little bit different, but it caters to all of those different learning types.
Yes, brilliant.
And before we wrap up, Rebecca, have you had to leave our listeners with a summary or one key message for them to take away? What would you like to leave them?
I think it would be let's definitely make the user experience better. So, I would highly recommend that if people haven't had a look at WalkMe, have a look at it, have a look at how it's changing the learning experience. And for consultants who are looking to upskill, the SAP WalkMe Learning is available free of charge. You can find it on learning.sap.com. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested in upskilling and looking for that, a badge to put on their resume, highly recommend that people have a look at it and start upskilling.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Rebecca. I'm definitely well informed of WalkMe now. I wasn't before, but certainly am now. And really appreciate your time and coming on to the podcast today.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Good stuff.